Coming towards my camera is one of the biggest males in the forests of central India. This is undoubtedly one of the best places in the world to experience wild tigers. And I wanted to start my journey from here. As he stepped on my tire treads, my heart skipped a beat. I could almost smell him. I wanted to feast my eyes on him for as long as I can.
But for how long? Because the truth is that the Indian tiger is dying. Its prey and habitat are being destroyed. It's been killed for its skin and bones. Take a look.
In the last 10 years, over 700 tigers have been killed in the Indian forests. Sariska has been finished. All the tigers poached.
In the last 30 years of me working with tigers, there's never been a more severe crisis. But the crisis comes from absolutely low-grade governance.
In Panna, more than 20 tigers may be missing or dead, all between 2002-2004.
The response of government, central government and the state government is unbelievable. It's like breaking your head on the brick wall.
In Ranthambore, where the tigers are made legends in several films and books, are today struggling to make a life.
When a species is down to its 4 or 5% of its original range, in many areas it will go.
Many tiger reserves are under mining threat, threats of power plants, dams, commercial plantations, and insurgency.
30% of the Project Tiger areas are not under our administrative control. And you calculate, even today, 40% of our areas are not within our physical control. How do we manage tigers?
In the last 20 years, I've been filming the Indian forests. I've never seen the tiger face such a huge crisis. But how did this happen? In the next 60 minutes, I will undertake a journey through the tiger's terrain, meet the people and the issues confronting this animal, and map for you the story of how the tiger is being systematically killed in this country. In Tiger, the Death Chronicles.
Tigers are big cats and need prey and large, inviolate areas to breed, hunt, and live. They hunt by stealth and need cover of the forest. Tigers are highly territorial animals and mark their territories meticulously.
this cheetal has been brought down by a tiger and has been hidden under this canopy. A tiger needs 50 of these full-grown cheetals to survive for 1 year.
For this, the habitat of the tigers and the prey species has to be intact. But why is it important to have tigers in the wild? If we move out the great predators from the forest, what happens? I went to Dr. Ulhas Karnik, one of the foremost tiger scientists of the world. Dr. Karanth has spent 30 years researching the tigers and has come back with path-breaking findings.
One is the same observer.
Dr. Karan, scientifically, if the tiger is removed, then what will happen?
There is sufficient research to show that when you take top predators out of systems, it has a huge effect on other kinds of predators and on herbivores, and in the long run, when you change the herbivore community, you have influences on forests. So, the removal of these top predators changes the biological community, but if your view is I do not care what happens to the biological community, let us pave it all and build McDonald's, that is also a valid view, you know.
So what Dr. Karanth is saying is that when top predators like tigers are eliminated, the entire ecosystem could be destabilized. In many ways then, the tiger could be holding the forest system together. And forest for us is not only a repository of biological resources, but also water. Over 300 major rivers find their origin in the forest of India. So paving it with McDonald's, as Dr. Karan puts it, may make us lose a lot more than we imagine. And who controls the forests of India? The Forest Department. Therefore, clearly, the health of the tigers inside the national parks and sanctuaries is the responsibility of forest departments and Project Tiger, reconstituted as the Tiger Conservation Authority. A closer look reveals chaos. The one primary task the Project Tiger had set themselves up with was protection of the tigers. And look what's happened. Belinda has been working on poaching and trade issues for years.
A group of poachers can go into a tiger reserve, a national park, a wildlife sanctuary, and systematically clean it out. The people who did it in Suriska, they knew that the management was weak there, that many of the border chowkis were empty during the monsoon months, that these people are organized enough now to go to any national park or sanctuary which has weak management and wipe out certainly the big cats. When I went to Tibet in China last year and collected all that information, which was just people parading by in tiger and leopard skins from India, nobody took any notice. Ministry of Environment and Forest never made a single phone call. Nobody took any notice.
Continuing its indifference about trade and poaching, the authorities would even go a step further. Maintain a falsely generated high tiger number. The technique was to count the pug marks of the tigers. The pug marks were converted into plaster casts and represented individual tigers. Because pug marks are unique to tigers, as is the human thumbprint. But this technique was outdated and totally dependent on personal judgment. It didn't have scientific rigor or neutrality. Therefore, it had always been surrounded by controversy and confusion. Buxa in North Bengal is a typical case. Here, the tiger numbers have always been maintained as above 30, but the forest and the prey base has never been capable of supporting more than a couple. I went to PK Sen, the former Project Tiger director, to know more about this. He was a part of the rare breed of forest officers who was honest and outspoken and called a spade a spade.
How many people have seen tiger in last 20 years in Buxa?
You mean to say nobody has seen tigers in Buxa?
I have not seen in last 10 years.
But they have meticulous records of tiger sightings,
Everything,
pug marks,
tiger
everything.
sighting, pug marks, where is the prey base?
But how do
They
they have?
don't need human being.
But how do they have these?
They can always have it. They can always have it. If the plaster cast of 1991 is marked as plaster cast, but you can put it on the ground and take another plaster cast. So things are happening
They
like
may
that.
be stamping.
Yeah.
You're saying the tiger numbers are fudged. We all know tiger numbers have been fudged for 30 years.
Why fudged? There are two reasons for that. Number one is nobody could dare to say that tigers' numbers have been reduced. When I reduced the number of tigers, according to the rough estimation, that was not the final estimation, to 41, the newspapers reported that PK Sen within 1 year of his tenure as field director has eaten away 28 tigers. And there was a commission of inquiry against me. Therefore, nobody wants to take this botheration.
If PK Sen was harassed for telling the truth, then you can imagine what fate will be waiting for individuals outside the government. One person who can stand up and vouch for this trademark denial and harassment is Dr. Raghu Chundawat, tiger biologist who has worked in Panna National Park for 10 years. He collared 6 tigers to study them. Few of them were 120, as she was called, a female with 3 litters. 111 was 120's sister. Then there was 113's cub. But Dr. Chundawat's tigers went missing with no forwarding address. 120 was found dead in a snare, December 2002. Her 2 cubs were 8 months old and presumed to have died without their mother. 111 disappeared August 2002. 113's cub disappeared 2004. Only 3 out of 22 tigers he claims missing or dead have been found in the last 3 years.
I still can't believe that when you provide them this kind of information, that tigers have gone missing. The known tigresses, breeding females. When we raised the issue that there are so many tigers missing, to cover up thing was they did a special census of tigers. And the special census said that everything is fine. We have not lost tigers, but in fact we have an addition of tiger. So there were one more tiger.
But as a scientist, he should not speak as a लेमैन या स्वीपिंग स्टेटमेंट्स नहीं देना चाहिए, टेक्निकल स्टेटमेंट्स बात करना चाहिए। तो
नहीं, उनका तो कहना हम टेक्निकल स्टेटमेंट कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि
ये आपको लग रहा है टेक्निकल स्टेटमेंट है क्या?
नहीं, 30% वो कहते हैं 30% एरिया में सिर्फ टाइगर हैं, बाकी 70% में टाइगर खत्म हो गए। उन्होंने कहा कि टाइगर पन्ना में अब मल्टी स्टोरी बिल्डिंग में रह रहे हैं, क्योंकि एक ही जगह इतने टाइगर्स बता रहे हैं तो वो हो ही नहीं सकता, साइंटिफिकली पॉसिबल नहीं है।
उन्होंने भी 2002 में एक कैमरा ट्रैप लगा के स्टडी की थी, जहाँ उनके जितने क्षेत्र में टाइगर थे 2002 में, उतने क्षेत्र में अभी टाइगर हैं और सेम डेंसिटी अभी भी है, कोई उसमें डेंसिटी फ़र्क नहीं आया है। हमारा डेली रिकॉर्ड होता है टाइगर कहाँ किस कंपाउंड में मार गया, हम मैपिंग करते हैं, उसका मैप बनाते हैं और मैप पे पूरा रहता है कि टाइगर डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कहाँ कहाँ है, तो वी मैप एवरी मंथ। तो उसमें ऐसी कोई बात ही नहीं है कि टाइगर कम हो रहे हैं या कोई चिंता की बात है।
But what is the system, Raghu? If the forest department
see, the thing
says
is,
this, who's challenging? I mean,
nobody can challenge.
You are the scientist.
The problem is there is no independent monitoring of these population. So they do their own census, and then nobody can question it because nobody is allowed to do it. I was allowed because I had the permission, and when I found, I've been thrown out. They have also prosecuted me. Now I am a criminal because I am not sharing information of the cases which they have trying to register. Registered is that I am not sharing poaching information. I have forcefully made entry to park.
So you were defending the tigers, now you're defending yourself. To get an assessment of what's happening in Panna, or for that matter any other tiger reserve in the country, is very difficult, because tiger monitoring is the work of experts like Dr. Chundawat or Dr. Karant, and lay people like us have no clue of the tiger dynamics. And given the fact that critical objectivity is strongly discouraged by the forest department, this world seems to be closed. So to get an independent check of what's happening behind these closed gates is impossible.
The truth about Panna's tigers is still elusive, but the only thing Dr. Chandawat's criticism brought in was a sweeping upgradation of their protection systems. 44 new patrolling camps were set up through the park and a 24-hour monitoring system, the only one of its kind in India, I was told.
HN7 जी श्रीमान जी। हाँ, क्या मैसेज था? टाइगर है, त्रिपाठी जी बोल रहे हैं कि वहाँ समरा पहाड़िया के यहाँ मिल गया है, ओवर। ठीक है, चलें जल्दी चलते हैं। टाइगर देखते हैं।
कहाँ पर दिखा टाइगर?
सुंगरा पोखरिया जगह है।
And finally, I was shown a tiger in Panna.
हाँ, यहाँ से 7 किलोमीटर।
चलिए।
Which doesn't necessarily mean everything is fine, but yes, it was certainly thrilling.
Seeing wild tigers in their natural habitat is the most cherished experiences one can have. This is what we want Panna to become. Regain its lost glory and all its tigers back and safe.
Few more Sariskas has to happen, then only thing will happen. Sariska happened, initially everybody denied it. Authorities in the Project Tiger said that, they will come back. They have gone. Baksa, they say they're gone to Bhutan. Panna, they say because there is a huge population of wild dog has come, so that's why they had gone. Initially, that's what they were saying. See, we know truth from Sariska, Ranthambore, in places like this where there were some outsiders have gone and looked into it. There and the rest of the country, we don't know what's happening.
So, some of you must be wondering at this point that the film is getting too one-sided and not balanced, as it were, without the government's response. Well, it's not my fault. For 9 months, I've tried to get an interview of the concerned government officials. In what's now a symptomatic response, they didn't bother. They didn't think it was important for them to share their views on the Indian tigers with all of us. And these are top bureaucrats of the country who have been entrusted the job of saving the Indian tiger. Well, I'm not saying anything. It's up to you to make your own conclusions.
In my many years, I've filmed the Indian forests. It has never ceased to amaze me. It's obvious, Indian biodiversity is unique and precious. The images I've filmed dance before my eyes. The visuals you just saw is not the whole story of the Indian forests. Don't be surprised if I tell you that our forests support over 3 million people inside and several millions around it. And this surely competes for space with the tiger.
Given the biology of the species, that it is a big meat-eating animal which makes certain demands, critical breeding populations of tigers need areas where incompatible human uses have to be kept out. So, there are certain parts of the landscapes where you need tigers to breed and have viable populations. These needs to be kept free of incompatible human uses.
There is little disagreement over the need for inviolate zones for tigers. But the conflict is how to get that space secured for the tigers in a country like India. Look at the map of Indian forests and tiger reserves and superimpose Schedule 5 areas or the areas with a high concentration of tribal population. Then superimpose on this 150 poorest districts of India and we start getting the larger picture. The poorest people of India, mostly its tribals, live together with the tiger. Or in other words, several million people living daily with a few thousand tigers. By any imagination, a situation of conflict.
In the last 150 years, a minimum of 50,000 tribals and forest dwellers have been eaten, flesh and blood, by tigers. You take all the man-eating records, all the British district diaries, and you'll see the district records that in the 150 years what happened. At least 20,000 tigers have been poisoned by tribals and forest dwellers. At least 500,000 livestock have been eaten by the tiger or forest dwellers. So it's a relationship of conflict.
But how was this conflict addressed? By wishing it away. The forest department had no clue how to handle the people living inside. Most of their policies from the inception of Project Tiger 30 years ago have simply tried to keep people away and out of the tiger's domain, and with very little success. The tiger activists too had little patience with people's issues. They largely supported the guns and guards approach of protection against people and hated the word coexistence. The people's activists, on the other hand, didn't care about the tiger. So all in all, it was a huge ball of confusion in which the tribals got disengaged from their forests, and painfully, the tiger's fate was also sealed.
Tigers and people just cannot coexist together. If you want to have a healthy, viable wild tiger population, it has to live in inviolate habitat.
It's no point in crying about inviolate space when you do nothing about it. In the last 30 years of India's conservation history, only 80 villages have been relocated. And you and I know that they have been relocated in the most inhumane and crass way, unacceptable.
If we are talking about 4 million people, 3 to 4 million people inside protected areas today, there is no way on earth that you'd be able to move all these people out. You might be able to move a few thousand, maybe a lakh or 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs, but not 3 million people. So you have to deal with the practical reality of the fact that these people are going to live inside protected areas for a very long time to come.
Valmik, the passionate tiger activist who had dedicated his life to the tigers, was at the center of this debate.
Tell me one thing, I just want to ask you this question. Now you've talked about the forest department, the state, the government, and even people like you who have failed. Right? Now, obviously in India, people constitute a huge player in the conservation, especially of an animal like tigers. Now, why have they been missing, not only from the forest department and the Project Tiger and the government sort of list of priorities, but also yours? And do you think that...
Who are the people you're talking about?
The people who live with the tiger. People
they don't live with the tiger. This is total nonsense. This is where you all are brainless. No person lives with a tiger. When people live with tigers, the tiger has a fence. The guy is trying to guard his buffalo and guard himself. The conflict levels are huge. So let's not get into some romantic version of how people live with tigers. Huh?
The point is not about coexistence. Maybe there is no coexistence. What do you do with the 3 million people living inside the parks?
I'm saying give them the land. Take a clear decision saying you don't want tigers in this country. Give this 1% of your national parks to the people. Give all the tribals their rights. Say bye-bye tiger. Don't have foolish dreams of how you can make them work and coexist.
No, I think that's too simplistic.
It's not at all. I don't agree with you.
The tiger has lost out because the tiger conservationists has then become, the domain of a group of people who don't connect with a large number of people. There are times when you have to rise above yourself. You have to rise above yourself to say the larger message and the larger goal is much more important than myself.
Ashish is a part of Kalpavriksha, an NGO which straddles the rare middle path of wildlife conservation, combining it with people's rights. Sunita Narayan was the chairperson of the Tiger Task Force, set up by Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh to explore the tiger crisis in 2005.
One of the things that shocked me was in Ranthambore, the place that a large number of conservationists have been very fond of. The amount of anger that I saw of the local people against the park and the tiger, where they would essentially telling us that as far as we are concerned, those tigers are a curse. Because since they have come, we have got nothing. Learn to reduce the tension between the animal and people.
Today you see that people you've already made enemies of, who've actually got no livelihood options left because we've through policies we've foreclosed those options, we've stopped access, we've displaced them, etc. That these people have in fact become destructive.
Maybe both sides, a hard stance taken by those who believe wildlife should live, a hard stance taken by those who believe wildlife shouldn't live and forest dwellers should have rights. We could never join the lines. It was very difficult because these are very difficult issues because there's no coexistence between them.
this was the most unfortunate chapter of Indian conservation. Tribals and tigers could never be brought together for a holistic conservation picture. The tiger remained trapped within a vocal minority of people who could never connect with this Indian reality. But away from Pannas and Sariskas, there are still tiger reserves like Corbett and like Kana, which instill confidence and hope, and their forest staff may be an aberration. The inspiration, training, and motivation is high, and patrolling absolutely tight. I'm in the midst of the daily forest guard patrolling in the southern boundary of Corbett National Park. This is the part which is sensitive to poaching and is surrounded by villages.
कितने साल हो गए?
करीब 32 साल।
32 साल में कैसा देखा आपने पार्क को?
पार्क में काफ़ी
क्या स्थिति है?
बहुत अच्छी स्थिति है साहब, संरक्षण की स्थिति बहुत अच्छी है पार्क में।
तो ये किस लिए हुआ?
ये हम लोगों की ज़्यादा गश्त से यहाँ बीट लेवल से लेके डायरेक्टर लेवल तक मतलब पैदल गश्त होती है।
सब हर लेवल पे?
हर लेवल पे।
So what am I doing sitting by a Himalayan river, chasing the mahasir? A fish in a tiger film? What is the connection? Plenty. Mahasir or Mahasher is a tiger of this river Ramganga, and Ramganga is the lifeline of the Corbett Tiger Reserve in which we are sitting here. So by protecting the Mahasir and its habitat, the tigers also get protected, and that's what the people of this area are doing.
Patrolling is not the only high point of Corbett. The forest department here has brought in a unique tripartite agreement to save the tigers. A partnership between private sector resort owners, villagers, and the forest department. The system works like this. Villagers get a percentage of the profit made by the resort from angling tourism. In turn, they save the Mahasir by protecting the Ramganga river. Sumanta Ghosh owns Vanghat River Lodge, the resort by the Ramganga, and is spearheading this partnership. Benefits to the local people is what he says is the cornerstone of tiger conservation.
When we interact with local lads, that's the only thing that we say that, if you have caught a fish now and you've eaten it, it's gone. But if the same fish is saved, it's there, an angler comes and catches a big fish, 20-25 kilo mahasir, it is a lot of money which is generated. The guide made some money, and then overall when the lodge gains money, and then at the end of the year it will again go to the village. So it's a fish saved is eventually going to bring him more revenue.
So how do you think in the larger sort of conservation framework, saving the mahasir in Ramganga here affects the tiger?
The fish plays an apex, it's apex species to the river. It's similar to what the tiger is. So once once the main water source of the park is such saved, it will eventually also save the tiger, you know.
A few kilometers ahead is the village of Choti Haldwani. Young Puran Singh of Choti Haldwani village took me around the Corbett Trail. A 3-kilometer trail has been cut out to take tourists along the places Jim Corbett lived in the village he owned. This village is adjoining Corbett National Park. Using this contiguous forest, tigers sometimes come out of the reserve. This is a classic case of giving protection to the tigers outside the reserves by making partnerships with people.
कई बाघ तो बाहर भी आ जाते हैं जंगल से, तो उनका भी फिर संरक्षण हो जाता है, लेकिन कोई पोचिंग इस टाइप का नहीं होता.
Here we are talking not only in terms of engagement with the village communities, but also with the townships, with the private sector, with the NGOs, a whole range of stakeholders. It's not about sermonizing, it's not about telling the communities that what they should be doing, but it's about providing an opportunity to the communities to see for themselves what is conservation and what difference it makes.
In a gloom and doom world of the tigers, there are still a few patches of sunshine after all. Corbett's director has demonstrated that even within the forest department framework, you could successfully work with the tigers, with tight protection and people's partnerships. Is someone listening there? I travelled to South India to see another working model of people's conservation of tigers.
Stretched out below me is 540 square kilometers of primeval forest, Biligiri Rangan Temple Wildlife Sanctuary. This is the forest of the tiger and 5,000 soligas. The soligas depend on this forest for their livelihood. They have a special relationship with the forest. They save the forest and they save the tiger. Let's explore this further.
The Soliga tribe here harvest minor forest produce and eke out a livelihood. But it is not a romantic coexistence model. The unique aspect of this model is it is scientifically and socially monitored.
According to our studies, 5 to 6% of the 5 to 7% of the lichens is being harvested in this forest, not more than that.
Just 7%?
Yes, just 7%.
Siddhappa Shetty is a scientist from ATREE, an NGO dealing with the science of conservation. He works in BR Hills with soligas, monitoring their forest-produced extraction techniques and levels. VGKK, another NGO, works in tandem with ATREE to provide support to the soligas. They help with value addition to the natural resources soligas extract from the forest, like honey. VGKK also runs a school for soliga children. BRT Sanctuary holds out the example of how the much debated word coexistence can be holistic and sustainable. Left to themselves, perhaps the soligas may not have been able to achieve what they did now, but both VGKK and ATREE are the scaffolding partners of the soligas. The active presence of soligas in these forests provided additional pairs of ears and eyes to protect the tigers. Siddhappa and Solegas confirm that the tiger sightings in BR Hills have increased. And if that is any indication, then the numbers may have too. Corbett and BRT examples prove that local decentralized solutions would perhaps help the tigers more than the centralized ones from Delhi. What happened recently in BRT further solidifies this claim. In all good intention, a pan-Indian Supreme Court judgment banned collection of forest produce in all sanctuaries and national parks. But the repercussion on the BRT sanctuary was not anticipated. Siddhappa told me about the disaster which followed the ban. Seeking their opportunity, some non-Solegas from the plains came and mercilessly harvested the fruits. Unknown to sustainable harvesting techniques, they chopped down 200 Aula trees.
Initially, they had permission to harvest NTFPs and they used to protect dairy. So there was a ownership. Now they are not bothered. Okay, anyway, we do not have rights to harvest. If somebody is coming and harvesting, what we can do.
50-60 Solega hamlets inside the Beligiri sanctuary who today cannot take non-timber forest produce. Tomorrow they are going to say, if you are not going to allow us this also in the name of the tiger, then we don't want the tiger. That is where coexistence becomes impossible.
In a quick assessment of the tigers till now, the report card seems dismal. You've endangered the tigers inside your national parks and sanctuaries. The people who live with the tigers are its enemies now. And this is inside. More than half the tigers are outside the national parks and sanctuaries. And these forests are less protected and the tigers more vulnerable. So no prizes for guessing what's happening to these tigers.
On 9th August 2006, one tiger strayed out of Dudhwa Tiger Reserve and was killed by the forest department as it had mauled a few people. From the charismatic male it looked like a scrawny dog when its bullet-ridden body was removed. On 13 September 2006, an 8-year-old male walked out of the southern boundary of the Corbett Tiger Reserve. It got accidentally shot through his eyes by some poachers waiting for a quick pig or a deer kill. And these were not poaching for skin and bones. These are accidental killings outside the tiger reserves. Tiger crisis has taken a whole new turn, and this might be the proverbial last straw for the tiger. Their remaining forests outside the parks are being decimated. In states like Orissa, both tigers and people are being thrown out of their homes. The hills behind is where I'm going to find the big story.
कितना दूर है? और यहाँ से 3 किलोमीटर
I'm climbing the sacred Niyamgiri hill with Siddharth. He's a lawyer and works with the protest group we just saw below. These hills are covered with rich forests, with many endangered and protected animals like leopard, elephants, bear, barking deer. The presence of at least 4 tigers have been recorded in this area. With innumerable birds and reptiles, this diverse forest is a very important link forest, providing a rich corridor to the animals. It is proposed to be notified as a sanctuary and an elephant reserve. More than 100 streams and 2 major rivers, including the Vansadhara, originate from here. This hill is where the Dongria tribals live.
Finally, after a 3-hour trek, we reached the top of Niyamgiri Hills, crossing beautiful and thick forests on the way. But unfortunately, millions of tons of this bauxite is buried under this hill, and a global company, Vedanta, is threatening to mine this entire hill for this mineral. The fate of the tiger and the wildlife in the forest we've just crossed is therefore uncertain.
To mine the 72 million tons of bauxite, over 1,000 hectares is proposed to be dug up on the top of this hill. 672 hectares out of this is inside the Niyamgiri Reserve Forest. So much for protected forests. An alumina refinery plant has already been set up in Lanjigarh on the 700 acres acquired from 6 villages down below the hills. It's now just a matter of time before the final clearances come in and the Niyamgiri Hills are opened up. If this project goes through, then the hills might look like this soon, robbing the tigers and the Dongriyas of their homes. Mocking all the forest protection policies, this mining project could be a hard reminder of our priorities and our choices. If we now go back to our map of people and tiger reserves and map the mineral wealth of the country, a very ironical picture emerges. Most tiger reserves are sitting over rich mineral wealth. Tigers walk on the richest lands of India, and the powerful want a bite out of this land. We all want a double-digit growth and economic well-being. But why must the tiger have to pay the price? In 1994, the government created a special provision to protect the natural world from the destructive fallouts of development. Environment Impact Assessment, or EIA notification, was a process by which a comprehensive assessment would be done of the impact of a project coming up around a forest. But in the last 5 years, there has been a systematic dilution of this EIA, favoring the industries and corporates. I met up with Ritvik, He explained the latest changes made in September 2006, putting in the final nails to the tiger's coffin.
Today, surprisingly, the whole EI notification does not mention the word tiger reserve even once. So how do you deal with a crisis? You deal with the crisis by bringing out a law which deletes all reference to tiger reserve completely. Whether it's a mining project, whether it's a hydropower project, must be comprehensively evaluated in terms of the EI notification. That unfortunately will not take place because the EI is no longer required for projects coming up in tiger reserve areas.
More gory things are happening in Goa, the richly forested state in the Western Ghats. Under the EIA regulations, mining leases over 5 hectares would require clearances. So miners here came up with something unique. They cut up mining patches in parcels of 4.99 hectares. Sandeep, a local activist working against mining, takes me through.
So where we are going, what is the situation there?
We'll see a mining pit below 5 hectare.
We'll see below 5 hectare
mining pit, yeah. And these are iron ore mines, manganese mines, and even metal quarries. So in the long term, if the situation continues, it will play havoc with the Western Ghats.
And what about tigers?
Tigers, there are tigers.
The tigers also.
There are tigers, leopards, civet cats, panthers.
It's like a honeycomb coming in. So next to the 4.99, he will apply for another lease. So entire area that is taken would actually might end up to 100 hectares, 200 hectares. Now what is happening here is we have never visualized that. What we now do is to deal with the 5 hectares. We have now brought in the new notification which says till 50 hectares you will not require clearance from the central government. So what will now happen will be that the 4.99 will cancel into 49.99 hectares.
So now it's become 50 hectares.
It is now 50 hectares.
Tiger's future story is scary. In Orissa, 43 projects are in the pipeline, which will extract 58 million tons of iron ore. The total investment? 192,000 crores. In 25 years between 1980 and 2005, a total of over 95,000 hectares of forest land has been diverted for mining, and half of it in the tiger mineral-rich states like Orissa, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh.
In the tiger state of Madhya Pradesh, look what I found. A letter written by the Madhya Pradesh Forest Conservator to all his officers, ordering them not to stop any projects within the forest which earns revenue for the state, even if it violates the Forest Conservation Act. That's what the letter says. Madhya Pradesh then has made its priorities clear. It's revenue and not the tiger.
In a sensational discovery, the Forest Survey of India revealed in just 3 years, between 2001 and 2003, India lost more than 26,000 square kilometers of dense forest in just 3 years, about half the size of a state like Himachal.
In the 70s, we had some strong laws put in to prevent or at least make the Ministry of Environment a brake, whereas the Ministry of Economic Affairs and other ministries are the engine. It's like a car, you need a brake. Now what's happened is you have made the engine far more powerful. You put a 12-cylinder engine and Prime Minister is pumping gas into the engine and pressing on the accelerator, but the brake is being dismantled.
silent majority of people who love the Indian tiger, who care about it, people like you, who will not speak out. That's the constituency that needs to come forward. And I think that's where the silent majority, if it cares about the Indian tiger, has to come forward and say so.
Navneet Maheshwari came forward and said so. He went to court with a public interest litigation against the state of Madhya Pradesh to seek answers for the tiger decline. And he is angry.
एक ऐसा देश जो अपने नेशनल एनिमल को बचाने के लिए कुछ नहीं कर सकता, इससे ज़्यादा शर्म की बात क्या हो सकती है? हमारे नेता केवल एक चीज़ से डरते हैं, वो है हमारे आम जनता, क्योंकि उनको वोट उन्हीं से मिलना है। और मेरा बेसिक आइडिया केवल PIL लगाने का ये नहीं था कि हम इनके ऊपर प्रेशर डालें, साथ में ये भी था कि जनता भी उसको देख के जागे कि हमारे नेशनल एनिमल की क्या स्थिति हो रही है। कि अगर मैं आगे बढ़ के लगा सकता हूं तो हर एक व्यक्ति जिसको अगर मन में 1% भी इच्छा है कुछ करने की, तो उसको आगे बढ़ के आना पड़ेगा।
I am in Sariska and I wanted to finish my film here in this tiger graveyard. After spending 1 year filming this animal, what do I feel? Angry and betrayed. A handful of people sealed the fate of the tiger, and we let them. We didn't care. It was our collective failure. But in this twilight hour of the tiger, there still seemed to be a faint glimmer of hope. Ironically, in the people of this country, people like you and me, people like Navneet Maheshwari. So what do we do to get the tiger back to us, to make it survive and safe? Make the authorities answerable, make the state accountable. With this new right to information, ask questions. Ask why the expenditure on tiger conservation in this country has actually reduced even after the Sariska. Ask why does the Tiger Conservation Authority doesn't have a single tiger ecologist. Ask how long will these forests of India will be rampantly written off to miners. Ask how long will this tiger genocide last? Till the last tiger is alive? Tigers don't have a vote. Give it a voice. Give it its last chance to survive.